This is Marketing Uncomplicated. I'm super excited about this show, and I'm very excited to introduce you to Dustin Portillo. Dustin Portillo's childhood dream began a reality when he joined the world-renowned Ringling Brothers, Circus as a professional clown at 19 years old. For 7 remarkable years and 3,500 shows, wow, that's a big number, he entertained over 35 million people across North America. And I can only imagine that there were some international people that came as well to those shows. So Dustin definitely had a global touch. Recognizing his exceptional talents, McDonald's recruited him to portray the beloved Ronald McDonald's character. Dustin made hundreds of appearances, including most notably in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We've all seen it, I'm sure at least once. His role as Ronald McDonald eventually led to a prominent community relations executive position at Casper's Company, a successful McDonald's franchise. Today, as a full-time speaker and an author of inspiring book, It's Okay to Be an Idiot, and we'll get into that a little bit, and I'll make sure to let you guys know where to get it. Dustin takes the center stage once again, sharing his infectious sense of humor and delivering powerful messages to a captivated audience. Welcome, Dustin. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. How y'all doing out there? I can't hear you, but hopefully you're all having a really good day.
Hello. I'm sure they all can. They eventually will. Well, let's get into it, Dustin. You know, I wanna take a step back and just kind of learn about your, as we talked about in the intro, how you got recruited into the Ringling Brothers, that experience, and then kind of like the lead up into Ronald McDonald, and then where we are today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. You are an incredible person, and yeah, this is a treat. So thank you.
Likewise.
So I grew up in Kansas City. I went to my first Ringling show when I was 4, and I told my parents that's what I wanted to do. I don't recall that moment, obviously, but it's been told many a times that at 4 years old, I tugged on my mom's shirt and said, I want to be a clown. And that was a consistent, I want to be a clown phrase from 4 up until I joined the circus. And there was something that I was doing at that age that I didn't know that I was doing until my 30s.
Yeah.
And that's something called visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And I could physically see myself being a clown with the Ringling Brothers. I'd get home from school, slap on my green plaid pajamas, and immerse myself in the world of the circus. I would pretend like I was either getting hit in the face with a shaving cream pie or in the opening production number waving to the audience. And there's something about visually seeing yourself doing it that brings it closer to you as far as the manifestation.
Did you learn that visualization on your own? It was just something you did?
I don't know what it was.
Amazing.
No one ever, I've never heard anyone in my family ever talk about that. And actually, a lot of people don't really know about it.
Yeah.
The visualization, the manifestation, and there's this equation that I have come up with that has kind of guided me all these years. And so I was doing all these things as a kid, and then, you know, it just was something that was never leave me alone. It was always there. And I never found the clowns funny. I still don't. I don't really find clowns funny.
Yeah.
It was the mechanics of what they were doing, how they were falling, how they were getting out of the car, how they were throwing the shaving cream pie without getting hurt, the explosions. There was something about it. I don't know why. Something visually. And I wanted to be a part of it. And so I graduated early. I graduated in 2004. I was supposed to graduate in May of 2005. I got a 6-month contract up in New York working at Six Flags.
Okay.
First time away from home. Really didn't know what I was doing. Someone had recruited me to be a clown for the circus show up there. And kind of a hellacious 6 months. Again, first time from home. I was getting paid like $125 a week, living out of the back of a Ryder truck, one of those box trucks.
Yeah.
And the box truck had a plywood wall that separated my small room to the dog kennel because the dog act that was his rider truck, and
Yeah.
just a piece of plywood that, anyways, horrible experience. At 5:30 every day, the dogs would wake up because they want to get fed, so they bark, 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 bark. There was no facilities in my room, so if I had to go to the restroom, take a shower, wash my hands, I had to walk about a half mile to the water park.
Yeah.
Just a really bad experience. And the icing on the cake was the bed that I slept on was, if you've ever been in the back of like a Ryder or a U-Haul, they have like a mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what the name of it is, but it's like a little alcove up there, and that's where the
Yeah.
bed was. But they had cut into the bottom of it
So there was a
where
hole.
they kept the 6-foot Burmese python for photo ops after the show.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm sleeping
With the python underneath you.
with a python underneath me. And now looking back, I was really brave to do that. I was very brave to do that. I didn't think anything of it because I really wanted to be there. But anyways, a lot of stuff going on. And as fate would have it, 6 months, never once checked my email until towards the end of my contract. I went to the local Queensbury, New York library with the other circus performers. The vice president of talent and production for Feld Entertainment, the parent company who owns Ringling Brothers, emailed me the day prior. I checked my email Tuesday. He emailed me Monday, and the subject line was opportunity. And it was a very simple email. Dustin, please call me at your earliest convenience. And he gave me his cell phone number. Well, being 18 at that time, very naive, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've missed my opportunity. It's a day later. I call him up and he says, we are going to offer you a contract for Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. And the dream came true. And I finished out that contract, went back home to Kansas City. And 1 month later, I was to report in Rosemont, Illinois, and join the greatest show on earth at the very ripe age of 19 and stayed there for 7 years.
Wow. Wow.
Incredible opportunity. Amazing. And 7 years, 3,500 shows, 35 million people. And you are 100% right. All over the world, right? People would come from all over and see the show. And at 22, became the third youngest person in Ringling's history to become the boss clown.
Wow.
Which was something that I wanted to always do.
And what is the boss clown?
So the boss clown was the liaison between management, show management, and the clowns. So if there was an issue going on, they would come to me, and I would then go to the clowns, brush up rehearsals, creating new routines for the new shows, biting on the ear of the vice president of talent and production, saying, hey, this person really isn't working out. I think we need to let him go. And there was quite a few of those over my tenure. But at 22 years old doing that, and the third youngest person, it's a lot of responsibility. And it wears on you extremely quick. Very, very quick, because your focus shifts from you to now the other 13 clowns. And I always said I managed a bunch of idiots. And then later on in life, I would write a book called "It's Okay to Be an Idiot." So things definitely play into account there. After 7 years, I was like, you know what? My dream is dying out. It's time for me to go. And my husband, who was also a clown with me on Ringling Brothers, that was his childhood dream.
You guys met
he was leaving
at the corporation?
At the circus. Yeah. He was. I joined the show about 6-7 months prior to he, and his last year, he got it written into his contract that if he got into film school, that he could give the show 2 months notice without being penalized or being sued, because you have to think the costumes that we wore were several $1,000s
and tailored to you.
So absolutely. So you just can't leave the show and then expect that the next person that they hire is going to be able to fit the costume. Plus that's your character. So he got into film school, went to Florida State University, got his master's in screenwriting. I decided I'm done. And 7 years, amazing memories.
Yeah.
Really, that was the foundation to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And I left. I had a meeting with the producer of Feld Entertainment, and I asked her, I said, hey, is this new show going to be a challenge for me? And she said, I can't guarantee that it's going to be a challenge. And at that moment in time, I knew time to move on. So later that year in 2012, I had a contract talk with the talent scout and said, hey, Brandon's leaving and I'm also headed out. And it was difficult, but definitely something that I needed to do for me personally.
Yeah.
And then come to find out all these years later, a couple of days ago, I'm leaving the gym. A lady walks up and she goes, are you Dustin Portillo?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And she said, well, I bought your book. Okay. And she said, I just finished chapter 2 where it says, you're leaving the circus because you and your husband found out that you didn't want to become complacent
Yeah.
at the job. And you need to leave when that dream is dying out. And she said, for the longest time, I haven't been happy at the job I have. And reading the last couple of pages of that chapter was a sign from the universe that it's time for me to go. So thank you for writing that. And just FYI, I drafted a resignation letter and I'm sending it off today at 3:00.
Wow.
So
that
was
is
an
the best and biggest
incredible
compliment. Yeah.
It was amazing. And it was
Yeah.
amazing to have someone tell me that my book, only chapter 2, moved her so much that she was like, you know what?
I'm done.
I need to be doing this. And I want to thank you for you being the catalyst for the change in my life.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what an amazing story. I mean, from your initial stance at Six Flags, and being a clown there, and then moving on to the Ringling Brothers and having just the visualization process, like as a little child, the fact that you picked this up so early on when people are like teaching it now, people are learning how to do it now. I mean, and this has become such a big thing, like manifestation, visualization.
Absolutely.
I had a guest recently on the podcast. She was actually my first podcast visitor, and she talks all about functional imagery training, and that's what she does with her clients, and that's what their coaches do with their clients. And it's quite fascinating that you already had that in your DNA to kind of like just put forward, because you really were steadfast and knew what exactly you wanted to do and become in your future, which is unbelievable.
It is. And I also think that we all possess that power, but we all possess the power of losing it.
Yeah.
On our path in life, when things seem to not be going well, we start to get into the trenches of woe is me.
Yes.
And I've had those moments after Ringling Brothers. But you have to re-engage it. It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
And there's techniques out there. There's techniques that I use. Like I said, there's a formula, a secret formula that I have found that has worked for me, that in my speaking business, that is the mic drop moment for my audience is, hey, this is the formula that I have found that will revolutionize your life, but you have to let it in. You have to open the door. I'm knocking on it. Yeah. But you need to open it up. Yeah. I'm going to give you the tools and resources, but if you don't follow it, and I'm a living testament. And trust me, I've had ups and downs, massive ups and incredibly lows. But that's called life. And how do you get past it? How do you move on? Well, you have to pick yourself up and go. And keep going. And right. And after I left Ringling Brothers, I found myself in Los Angeles. I thought I wanted to be an actor in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And this
was after your husband moving to Florida, film school. So film school ended, and then you moved to Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So he moved to Florida for film school for 4 years. I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
I moved in with my uncle.
Yeah.
And my uncle had a beautiful home out there. He was pretty well off, and he said, "Hey, come and stay with me. Yeah. You can get your chops. See what happens." Yeah. Oh, thank you. Moved in with him. You want to talk about a humbling experience, going from being an elite performer with Ringling Brothers to working at Chipotle.
Yeah.
That is a incredibly humbling experience. And I went into the interview because I needed a job. I was not good at saving money on Ringling, nor were we making massive amounts of money. We were doing it because it was here in our hearts.
Yeah.
You know, any performer who you talk to who has pretty much stayed true who they are will tell you, I don't do X, Y, and Z for the money. I do it because of the outcome. So I needed to get a job quick. I went to the interview at Chipotle in West Hollywood. So shout out to my West Hollywood Chipotle peeps all these years. And I'm sitting there talking to the general manager. I had never worked in the QSR industry before, the quick service industry. And he says, do you have any knife skills? Wanting to know if I could cook, if I could chop up the meat or the vegetables. And I said, absolutely. And I had the, missing finger, which I really don't. But I did this. And he goes, and I go, nope, I'm just joking. I don't. And he laughed his butt off.
I almost believed you for a second there. I was like, oh my God, he totally must have lost that in the circus.
Yeah, Tiger bit it off.
Yeah.
But, he laughed his butt off and he goes, you're hired.
Yeah.
And months later, when he was getting relocated to New Mexico, he said, I want to let you know that the reason I hired you was obviously you didn't have any of the background in the hospitality industry.
Or skill set, maybe.
Or skill set, right? Now, I'm very much a people person, so that played a huge part in my, humor. And he said, but the whole missing finger bit, let me know that you were going to be a team player and you were going to be fun. And I need people, a part of my team, who are going to bring that to our customers as well. So that finger bit landed me a job. It wasn't a career. It was a job, but it was something that I desperately needed at that time when I was down on my luck. Woe is me. What am I doing working at Chipotle? I was just with Ringling Brothers Circus. So again, a very humbling experience. And, I talk about,
and not to interrupt
imagining...
you, but you brought your true authentic self to that interview.
That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. You just completely shed where you came from, knowing what you needed to do to get to your next step. You shed everything and just put yourself in front of somebody else and said, you know what? I need this and I can do it. And I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's dropping the ego,
Well, and that's always something that has always peeved me. That's one of my pet peeves is whenever I would see specifically a comedic performer and they had the biggest ego backstage, or they were so rude. Yeah. I never understood the ego getting in the way of a comedic performer. Really, I mean, your job is to make the audience laugh, and we need two dressing rooms, one for us and then one for your ego. Yeah. That always flabbergasted me. But you're right. I put the ego aside. Hey, this is what I need to do. This is my moment. I did it very authentically. Mm-hmm. I showed up, and that's actually, I would consider one of my greatest strengths. Yeah. My superpower is being authentic and being intentional. And that's what I did. I showed up. I was, hey, this is what's going on. I don't have that experience, but I can make you laugh. And that sealed the deal. I was out there, but then I can tell you that I knew a couple of months in that my heart truly wasn't in being an actor in Hollywood. Yeah. And I believe that if your heart isn't in it with whatever you're doing, you're not going to be successful at it.
Absolutely.
Because there's a misalignment with the universe. And if you're out for the wrong reasons, it's never going to end well for you. And I realized that. Anyways, I was in that role for 7 months or so, and I would have people shift schedules and want to work alongside of me because I was making them laugh, and it was and people want to be around someone like that. People want to be around that.
Sure.
And anyways, found out, nope, this is not for me. I got a commercial agent who was getting me on commercial auditions. Yeah. And I will never forget. His name was Daniel. Mm-hmm. He looked like an old friend of mine from Ringling Brothers.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would call him up, and he sounded a little like Harvey Feinstein, from Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
And I would call up and he would answer the phone. Hello, DPM. And I would say, Michael. And he would go, Daniel. Every time that was the interaction with him, every time.
Yeah.
Where I would call him the wrong name.
Yeah.
Michael, Daniel. Every time. And it got so absurd. So finally I said, listen.
Who's Daniel?
I am so sorry.
Yeah.
So that was his name.
Yeah.
I was calling him the wrong name.
Yeah.
And so finally I said, listen, you remind me of a really close friend.
Yeah.
That's why I keep on calling you Michael. Probably wasn't good for our relationship. And that's actually a Dale Carnegie principle is, knowing the person's name. The sweetest sound to anyone's ears is their name.
Yep.
And I was totally misaligned with that. Anyways, we had a good relationship, but it just didn't work out. And I decided that I was going to leave LA. I moved in with my husband, who was at that moment in time fiance, getting his master's.
Mm-hmm.
Happenstance.
Yeah.
I get a phone call saying, hey, can you come to Tampa to do a 6-week contract for Busch Gardens? I had nothing else going on. Sure, I'll move down to Tampa. I found a college student at the University of Tampa who needed to rent out the room the time I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I moved in. A week into that contract, I get a call from corporate McDonald's, and they asked me, they said, hey, this is Carl Wolf, who at that moment in time managed the Ronald program.
Yeah.
We got your resume. Can we fly you to Tampa to audition for Ronald McDonald?
Did you send in your resume, or how did they get a hold of your resume?
No. I don't know. I know that being a Ringling clown opened a lot of doors in that realm. So, I just moved there.
Somebody passed it along.
Oh, absolutely. You know, just moved there for the 6-week gig. He calls me and says, can we fly you to Tampa? And I'm thinking,
wow. Yeah.
So weirdly enough, and what very little I brought, which was just basically clothes, I brought a blue suitcase with me that had my clown stuff in it. I had no intentions of ever clowning ever again.
Yeah.
A week later, I auditioned for the role, and there was 8 of us in the principal's office waiting to audition.
Yeah.
And these are people that had been flown from all over the country. They weren't just local Tampanians.
Maybe.
And there was one guy who was pacing back and forth in the very small principal's office.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting down in full clown makeup. I was the only one who even showed up. The rest of them were like amateur wrestlers. There was a balloon sculptor, a children's entertainer, but I was the only former professional clown. So I'm in full head to toe, full clown makeup. And this guy is pacing back and forth, and he's saying aloud to himself, I effing suck, I effing suck, I effing suck.
Yeah.
So finally, after me beginning to self-doubt my abilities to land this gig, I tell him, hey, I stand up, I go, hey, can you please sit down and be quiet, because you're making all of us self-doubt ourselves.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that guy was out of the job before he before his feet even landed in Tampa, because he had already talked himself out of the job.
Yeah. That's so horrible.
And he didn't get it. The next day I received a phone call and landed the gig. And they said, we were so impressed, first of all, that you captivated the 40 kids that were watching you. And he goes, and then whenever you interviewed with us, you were still in full clown makeup, but yet you were having a professional conversation. And for one of the franchises, he said it blew his mind.
Yeah.
That here's this guy, full clown makeup, who could have been making jokes the entire time, but when it was time for business, he put it all aside and he focused on that, and it blew his mind. And I didn't know at that time of my interview, whenever I left, he turned to the other panel and said, I don't want to see anyone else. That guy's it. And they said, Bruce, you can't do that. You've flown people from all over the country. Very humbling experience for me to have landed the role of a lifetime.
Yeah, I love what you said in terms of being in full clown set and being able to conduct an interview, because it's the idea of being able to, performance, switch on and switch off, right? It's just you've been practicing what you are preaching, even when you're not fully knowing it, but you are knowing it, because that's just how you've you've built your own internal mechanism to be no matter where you are. So
Absolutely.
just to take a little bit of a step back from those 3 gigs, from the first one was Six Flags, going into the Ringling Brothers, and then eventually into McDonald's. Tell me 3 lessons that you learned from each one of them that you're bringing into who you are today, Dustin.
Oh boy.
Or maybe one
Well,
lesson
you
that
know,
captivated all.
well, I can tell you that when I landed my corporate gig, which I'm sure we will touch on later on,
Yes.
um, I was, and this is where I'm getting to your idea of these principles. I was at a brand new lunch meeting, and this is the first time since I was 14 that I had not portrayed a character. It was me going to events representing this McDonald's franchise in the community relations. And I'm sitting at lunch with this brand new business contact, and we're talking and everything, and hey, how did you get your start in hospitality? Typically people work their way up from the fry person to an executive role, and you just got right in.
And just for the audience, your goal in this particular role with Ronald McDonald was what?
So Ronald McDonald, my only goal was the chief happiness officer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hospitals, I'm doing parades, I'm doing festivals, I'm doing grand openings, children's hospitals. I mean, you name it. We were doing about 230 events a year.
Yeah. Wow.
And then of course the Macy's parade and other bigger stuff for corporate McDonald's. But after I left that role and was in corporate, in the franchise, and I'll get to your principles.
Original,
so
yeah.
there's a roadmap here. I'm at this new lunch meeting with someone who I'd never met. He's sitting across from me, and he's asking me, how did you get into hospitality? You have to work your way up. That's typically how it is, but you kind of just got here. And I went, and he goes, what? And I go, excuse me. And I get up, and I'm sure he probably thought I was a real whack job. Because he knew a little bit about my, background. I get up, I go into the restroom.
Yeah.
I don't have to go, by the way. I didn't have to go to the restroom.
Yeah.
I went into the men's stall, closed the door, because at that one, there's floor to ceiling door for these stalls. Close it, lock it, and I text myself one word.
Yeah.
Idiot. And whenever he was asking me questions about performing days and how did you get mixed up with hospitality, it was that moment that he asked me those questions. He really got this out of me.
Yeah.
Which I should probably give him royalties. I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
There are these 5 fundamental concepts that have always guided me to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And now the world of speaking. Imagine your potential, dream big, ignite your inner fire, own your originality, and give thanks. So I'd have to say, now circling back, that those 5 concepts were the foundation to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at those moments in time, but those principles have always guided me from starry-eyed dreamer to corporate world, and now in the world of speaking.
Yeah.
And so
you totally unconsciously build your road one step at a time. Everything kind of just layered naturally.
Well, and they are milestones, right?
Yes.
And one was the foundation to the next, to the next. And when you're in the thick of it, you don't really understand it. But then whenever you stand back and you take your blinders off, you go, wow.
You don't understand it, but you are unconsciously doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
And, whenever I was on Ringling Brothers, we were doing 500 shows a year, plus all the television, newspaper, and radio interviews.
Yeah.
So you get really good at talking. And I had a stuttering problem growing up. And so in 7 years, I really saw this massive transformation of my speaking. Because we were doing, like I said, all those interviews every week, and you get really good. So that was my speech therapy was on Ringling Brothers. So if you look at an
Wow.
old video of me on a TV station talking about the show to my last couple of years, you're like, holy moly,
Yeah.
what a transformation. It went from me trying to talk incredibly fast to get my messages out, because I was incredibly nervous,
Yeah.
to honing it in, taking that nervousness and using facial expressions,
Mm-hmm.
slowing down my verbiage. Whenever you talk a little bit slower, people tend to be more focused, more intensely to you
Yeah.
than someone who's.
Totally.
And so I started to harness the energy differently, and my speech impediment went away. I stutter still, but it is so infrequent. It's so rare.
Yeah.
And my husband, whenever I stutter sometimes, he'll get this like coy smile. And and that upsets me because it's still there.
Yeah.
But it's something that he's fallen in love with, and it's something that I just have to get used to, that I think will always be there till my last breath in some degree.
Yeah.
Back then it was horrible. Now, not so much. I can go for a whole interview without stuttering, and I tell that story, and then people go,
Wow. I didn't even hear you
really?
once. Yeah.
That's amazing. So these 5 principles
Yeah.
have always been there, have always guided me. I just didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I mean, it's like, as we said, it's the stepping stones with those 5 principles that have really pushed you towards every little thing that you've done in the exact sort of unconscious, conscious like movement towards today, towards Dustin today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let's
Yes.
dive a little bit. Go ahead.
No, please.
No, what were you going to say?
This is, well, I don't know what I was going to say. This is called improv. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, tell us a little bit then about, the book, Dustin today, goals, reach, the audience. I mean, I want to know all, right? So, I mean, what is your absolute mission with, the book, Okay to Be an Idiot, which I love the title. I think it's fabulous. It's catchy. It makes you want to pull into, from the center ring to the boardroom. It's very supportive from the standpoint, I think, of anybody who is either in corporate or for entrepreneurs. I mean, your target audience is anyone and everyone.
Oh, 100%. So whenever you look at the front cover, your eye might go to the red ball. So the red ball really is the clown nose, right?
Yep.
And so idiot, again, is 2 meanings. The clown, which is the foundation of who I am, that humor still.
Yeah.
And the idiot, which is the imagine, dream, ignite, originality, and thanks. And so for about 1.5 years, 2 years, I've been giving a version of this keynote.
Yeah.
Which the keynote came first. Typically, the book comes first, then the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
The keynote came first. And I was in corporate for a McDonald's franchise after the Ronald days. Ronald McDonald was going away. And I got picked up with a local McDonald's franchise who owned 60 restaurants and other different projects in their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And from day one, I was groomed to be the vice president when that gentleman retired.
The vice president of the franchise. Community relations. Okay.
Yes.
Still tying back to all your experience.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I get the job. I should say I get the career. It was an amazing 5 years of my life.
Yeah.
Part of my role was to oversee a $1.9 million budget, and I had never seen that much money in my life.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. And getting to do donations and sponsorships, the morale of 4,200 employees. I had touches in operations, IT, human resources. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
I was incredibly blessed. And I didn't have anyone in 5 years say, that's a dumb idea. What are you doing? Why are you spending that money? Why are you leaving early? Why are you showing up late? 5 years of just bliss.
Yeah.
And
you were your own
incredible.
Sort of, not to say like you were your own boss, but it's kind of like everything that you had put into in the past. But I mean, I don't think you ever really were like, oh, I'm going to go into corporate one day. Like, this is where
I
I'm
never
gonna be.
even crossed my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, everything had in a way groomed you to get to this position that was essentially perfect because of the background that you had all encompassing.
Absolutely. Writing press releases, doing interviews, giving presentations, going into our 60 restaurants and just schmoozing with our employees and making them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
And then in July of 2022, I get a phone call from a local city councilman here in Tampa and said, "Hey, I heard a rumor that your company is selling." Yeah. What? Long story short, yes, it's true. I lost my job. The department I was in got annihilated. The gentleman who I was to replace, they retired him early. I left early. I got a job just like that.
Yeah.
And I realized after leaving Casper's that money and title didn't mean anything if you are absolutely miserable at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I always knew that. But whenever you're put in that situation, it really opens your eyes to life isn't about the vice president title or the money.
Yep.
Life is about loving what you are doing. And so I got a job just like that. It paid $40,000 more. It was a vice president level. 1 weekend, I knew I made a really bad decision.
Oh.
I resigned about a month and a half later. I had about a month off, got another job.
Yeah.
They were not honest about some of the things per my offer letter. So the CEO and I decided enough's enough.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about spiraling out of control mentally. God, why are you doing this? I don't understand. You set me up for these 2 great jobs. In the interim, I thought that, they were great. Why are you doing this to me? What have I done? And that's when I began to write, It's Okay to Be an Idiot.
Yeah.
But
just to remind the audience, you almost came up with the book title and the top and really the contents of the book while you sat there in the men's bathrooms.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I already came up. So the Idiot, I came up with the last 5 chapters.
Yeah.
At 2 years prior.
Yeah.
Or
did you know that it was a book prior. Or you just mentally had it in your head? Exactly. Yeah.
No, it was just whenever the Idiot popped into my head, I was like, yeah, okay, there's 5 principles that have kind of guided me. And I never ever would have thought that I would have made a keynote or even made a book out of it. It was like the light bulb going on and thinking, oh gosh, yes, thank you. This is because my first year in hospitality with this franchise, I didn't know who I really was.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was me when I was going to events. It was Dustin Portillo. It wasn't me portraying a clown.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't fully owning who I was. And then whenever this Idiot popped in my head, I'm like, there we go. And that was like, I just shot me off like a rocket. And so whenever I left the 2 jobs after Casper's, it was a spiritual journey writing this book, digging up who Dustin was growing up, going to the circus, my teen years, my 20s. And everything has just played off so well, and incredibly blessed that the book has opened eyes to audiences who read it. Because the book is the blending of entertainment and business. How you dress, how you act is a performance. You are a performer. And one of the chapters, I talk about the correlation between a clown nose and a business suit. When you see a clown, you immediately see red nose, clown. When you see someone who's dressed very professionally, your first thought is business person. That person works in business. They have a professional job. And so when you start to look at how you dress, it makes you think a little bit differently. In the book, I talk about going into a store and you have a problem with something and you're trying to find the manager, and the person comes up and says, well, I'm the manager. And you go, yeah, but I mean, you are dressed schlubbishly like the rest of them.
Yeah.
So how can I take you seriously? And whenever you can start to realize that how you dress really plays on your attitude, your self-esteem. And I want your, listeners out there, the next time that you're out at Walmart or Target or Dillard's or a grocery store, I want you to start observing those around you. And you can pinpoint people who have an incredible self-esteem versus those who don't have self-esteem. They walk differently, they act differently, and they dress differently. And I've been a part of that. Because I used to weigh 300 pounds years and years ago, but I would walk, kind of, with my shoulders forward.
Yeah.
And you can tell that someone who walks like that, they don't think highly of themselves. And that is the problem with every organization out there. And whenever I give my presentations, I always pose a question. What is the difference from the top 15% of organizations versus the remaining 85%? The top 15% of organizations, those folks up there, like your C-suite executives, directors, CEO, CFO, they are pretty much connected to their why.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to find loopholes. I understand that. But pretty much that top 15%, they're connected to their mission in life. Yep. They know that their work is benefiting everybody.
Yeah.
But what about the remaining 85%? Oftentimes when organizations are in crisis, financially, customer satisfaction, culturally, everyone, board of directors, and even that 85% go, what's wrong with the top? Sometimes it isn't the top 15%. Sometimes it's that 85% where there's the misalignment, right?
Oh, yeah. But don't you think that it comes from the top, though? Misalignment from top down, as they say, or?
I do believe that.
Yeah.
I also believe that if a company is hiring the wrong kind of talent, they start to muddy the waters of that 85% with people who aren't aligned with that top 15%.
Yeah.
And I was just having a meeting with Marriott International at the beginning of this week, which whenever you put this out, it'll be like,
live.
weeks later.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had a meeting with a Marriott, and I told she was the human resources trainer. And I told her, I said, the top 15% isn't necessarily always the problem. The 85% that there's that misalignment. And she said, you are so right.
Yeah.
She said, middle management sometimes is hiring just to fill spots.
You are so right.
And there's a barrier between the top 15% and the 85%,
below.
say 5%.
Yeah, because the middle management is talking to the upper management. So whatever is translated may be lost, and then it kind of like just trickles down. So you're right. I think that centerpiece is really what doesn't connect the top to the bottom, maybe.
Absolutely. Of course. And so you have now 85%, and I saw this at Casper's.
Yeah.
Incredible culture. Amazing. Whenever COVID hit, I can tell you we were scraping to find anybody. And the month of January of 21, we said we're going to hire 500 people in the month of January. So human resources came to me and said, hey, put together a radio ad, a 30-second radio ad.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I mean, we can hire 500 people in the month of January, but do you really believe that all these people are going to be culturally aligned with the organization, or are they just going to be bodies?
No.
And that's what they wanted. They just needed to fill positions to keep their restaurants operating.
Okay. So that was going to be my next question, is why do companies like that go out and really just fill in? I mean, what's the end goal? I mean, it's just mass hire to then mass fire in the end.
Because you have those at the top, and this is where I said you're going to have some finagling going on up at the top.
Yeah.
Again, it isn't always, but they're going to say, listen, we're understaffed. We can't operate. You need to do something about it. So the pressure goes on that middle management to now that goes all the way down to the very bottom of the organization.
Yeah.
And now you have a bunch of people who you've hired who are not culturally aligned. I talk about a performance-focused mindset in hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be the performer. But I can tell you that if that 85% of the organization, who is your front-facing community relations folks, I say, yeah, sure, you're handing out the food, you're checking the person into the hotel, but you're a part of community relations.
Sure.
And if that person is not, if that person has a horrible mindset for themselves, 99% of the time, that's going to spew to the guests coming into the hotel or to the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not work on that top 15. Let's work on the 85. Let's give them the resources. Let's focus on them. Let's have educational seminars where we can give them development. It doesn't just have to be for managers. We can get your hourly people in there and to shift their mindset
Yeah.
to having this performance focused mindset. Work on yourself. On RuPaul's Drag Race, which I don't watch, but she has a famous quote.
Yeah.
If you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Yeah. It's true.
Work on ourselves first, and then we can work on the entire organization. But
Mm-hmm.
let's focus on all of our people and get them in the right mindset.
Yeah.
And then I guarantee you, sales will increase, profits will go up, turnover will go.
Yep.
Because now you have aligned everybody with the mission of the top 15%.
Yeah. I have a question for you because I feel like with a lot of, I mean, being that my background is marketing and kind of focusing on that. I mean, everything in any industry is all about community now. I mean, you think about a product like Red Bull, which is not a product. I don't like their drinks. No offense to anybody who drinks Red Bull, but they have empowered a community-based product, and nailed it across all marketing levers, right? So when I think about community-based performance, I mean, it translates to every single industry, and it also translates to every smaller business, meaning, the small mom and pops, like the entrepreneurs, the tech startups, like all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I think your message could surely resonate and, be fluid across every type of industry. So why did you choose to focus and segment in on hospitality?
Well, because when you go to a restaurant,
Yes.
when you go to a hotel, people are choosing to get away from the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you go to Universal or you go to Disney, and I say those two specifically because they're entertainment destinations and they have their own properties, their own hotel properties. People are trying to escape their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Why do people go to see live entertainment? Why do people go to the movies? To escape reality.
Mm-hmm.
We are so inundated with our cell phones and television and the radios and social media. It's too much. People have to escape. And the reason why I chose hospitality is because there is a level of entertainment value when someone goes to a restaurant. I don't care if it's McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. I
don't care if it's Checkers. I don't care if it's Wendy's. I don't care if it's going to a 2-star hotel or a 5-star. You can still make it an incredible experience for those guests.
Yeah.
But if your organization is misaligned, that's where we get the negative reviews.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, something has happened at, Walmart where there's a misalignment somewhere going on. I mean, I just heard the CEO, the guy is incredibly gifted with how he talks and I can tell that he truly believes in Walmart's mission. But when you go to some of their locations, it doesn't even make sense. I mean, there's a misalignment.
Sure.
I mean, you go to restaurant chains or even hotel chains, and you can see that there's a misalignment somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of experience in the hospitality industry. You go into it's the flair of the hostess. It's the flair of the server, the food. Everything is a performance. Now, you are right. Performances can be in the tax accountant. It can be in the police officer.
Mm-hmm.
But why I chose hospitality is, first of all, for 5 years, or well, probably for 9 years, I spent it in hospitality
Sure.
from Ronald into corporate. So I know the inner workings of it. And there's stuff that I talked to you about today that I had mentioned to the 4,200 employees at Casper's.
Yeah.
When someone comes into your place of business, it's the greatest show on earth.
Yeah.
They don't care what
I
you
love
are
that.
going through.
Yeah.
Well, I always talk about service, from service to showtime.
Yeah.
When they come in, I mean, baby, it's on. No one cares about what Dustin Portillo is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So you take whatever garbage you have. And garbage, I mean, whatever you deem turmoil going on in your life. You set that by your car. You go into your hotel, restaurant, whatever it is, and it's go time.
Mm-hmm.
People come to you not to be their therapist.
Yeah.
They're escaping their own lives. Make it memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Give them the show. Whenever you leave and you clock out, you can pick up that garbage bag of all of your life. The audience doesn't want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, when I was a clown for Ringling Brothers and we were playing Madison Square Garden, and that curtain opens up and you have 17,000 people watching you.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that those 17,000 people didn't care what I was going through personally, because they were there to see the greatest show on earth.
Yeah.
And I would tell all of the clowns, those people there, this might be their only chance to see us.
Yeah.
Or see any live entertainment show. You have to make sure that it is up to par. It's the golden standard. We are the greatest show on earth, not the mediocre show on earth.
Sure.
And for that little 5-year-old kid up there, that's his greatest show on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want to ruin that for him?
Yeah.
I understand this is our 734th show, but to them, it's their first time seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to always be on our A game and give it our all and put aside any differences. And I always said the circus really was the United Nations. We had people from 18 countries,
Yeah.
And if we can set aside our differences and focus on that common goal of giving the audience what they want and performing our hearts out, it's a transformative experience amongst the cast and all those 17,000 people out there watching. 100%. And that's where you start to get loyalty from your customers, because they know what to expect every time.
Mm-hmm.
They know that Jonathan, the server, the guy is amazing. And we know every time we see him, he's going to light us up. There's just something about him that we don't go to the restaurant necessarily for the food.
Yes.
Jonathan makes me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And I come there because I connect with him. He makes me feel good, and it's always consistent, and it's showtime.
Yeah. You have an amazing way of truly connecting what you do to real life situations, so that anyone listening can really pick up on, I gotta get into that zone. I gotta move forward. I mean, and hence this woman who saw you just as you were walking in somewhere and said, "Are you Dustin? You've really captivated me, and you've really changed my life." I mean, it's just an unbelievable way. And I know, and that's why I kept pushing, why hospitality? Because I think that what you do can translate into so many different angles, and maybe that is the future for you one day. And your one focus is to ensure that, hospitality always continues to be its best across the way, because we do notice as travelers today, you go to one country or you go to one different type of hotel versus another, you notice the difference between the hospitality and the changes and how people, how you experience your experience. Right. And I think that performance-based, has changed when we talk about arriving at the airport, greeting the person behind the counter who's going to take my bag. And I think that it's really plummeted in that sense. I think a lot of airlines are just really different, today than they were maybe 15, 20 years ago. And, even just to come to think about an airline that I think is really performance-based is South by Southwest. I mean, you're already basically having the best time of your life before you even get to your destination, right?
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yep.
Align your 85% with the top 15%, and it's going to be transformative.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can all get behind that our lives are one big performance, and when you can truly own being the idiot, that is when the really good stuff starts to happen.
Yeah.
The visualization. I want your guest to leave hearing this podcast and saying, if I can see myself doing something
Mm-hmm.
that my future self would want to be, what is that? And I want the last 15 minutes today, I want everyone to sit down and just think, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? I gave a training yesterday to a lady who said, 20 years ago, I got the opportunity to sing at Carnegie Hall, and I was too scared.
Wow.
And so I spoke to her a little bit, and afterwards she came up to me and she bought my book, and she said, I didn't realize until you pinpointed it that I am constantly thinking about that missed opportunity and how I would still love to do it. And I said, well, I can't wait to get a text message or a phone call from you saying, hey, just FYI, I don't care if it's in 5 years, 20 years. Hey, FYI, I had the opportunity again and I went and did it, and it was sensational.
Yeah.
But if you can give those people seeds,
Yes.
start seeding.
Yep.
The fruit that will bear is going to be so sweet that the people can't resist from taking it.
So beautifully said yet again. I love it, Dustin. I mean, I could go on forever in this conversation, but I'd love to just ask you one more question. Obviously, that sort of answered it in the sense of, when I say, what is your mission? What is your dream? And I think, that ended it very nicely, but I do want to ask you.
Okay, thank you.
What is your mission? What is your dream?
My mission is to inspire, entertain, and lead people. We all need something in our lives that we can hold on to. And if I can be that catalyst for someone to create change. Yesterday, like I said in my presentation, so many transforming people's mindsets. And if I can lead someone to thinking and doing differently, that's going to absolutely transform their life. Nothing better than that.
Yeah.
My goal in life is to be that catalyst, be that person that is cheering them on. Whenever I see someone who's overweight, I used to be overweight, running, I think to I always want to roll down the window and go, "You can do it!" I'm afraid that they may think that I'm making fun of them, but I know how it feels to be overweight and to have that mindset. So if I can be that champion for someone, hey, you can do it. I believe in you. That's all it takes. And the mind can go wherever it wants.
Yeah.
We become what we think about.
Yep. I love it. So inspirational. Thank you again, Dustin. Where can everybody go and pick up your book?
It is on my website,
okay.
DustinMPortillo.com.
Great.
And I ship it. It comes from me. So every book I send out, I put a $500 bill in it. No, I sign every single book, and it is catered to the individual who is buying it. And DustinMPortillo.com.
Beautiful. This has been one great conversation, Dustin, and so inspirational. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. So thank you again for your time. This was awesome.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin.